What's good, my man? Society? It is your host with the most shadow look back at you with another video. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free. That is how you help my channel get into the algorithm. Highly appreciate if you go ahead and do that. Now, what I wanted to talk about was something I was asked, by one of my subscribers is that why do cholos, when they wear their button shirt, they only leave the top button, button, and the rest are unbuttoned? Uh, why do they do that? And now, just to make it clear, not every gangster does that, right? That's more you see in movies and typical stereotyping, individuals doing that. But individuals do that. Now, why do they do that? That actually comes from, incarceration, right? There's numerous reasons why it's done, right? You know, Depending where you're locked up at, right? It does get hot, right? So like that, it's a little bit more fresher, right? It's not as hot, during, like, let's say when there's heat. That's the same reason, for the long socks, in the winter, right? But I digress, right? It's not about that. But um, so individuals, do it, for to stay cool, right? But the main reason why is when it comes to anything happening, anything cracking off, anything, when stuff kicks off, right? And you need to, change, clothing, right? Let's say, you got blood on it, or for whatever reasons, right? It makes it a lot easier and faster, when you just have to, do undo one button than having to do a bunch of buttons, right? Same, for in the streets, right? When you're being chased by the cops, right? It's easier to get away. You just, if they grab your shirt, whatever, you just, you know what I mean? You're able to get free like that. So there's numerous reasons why it's done, right? Um, but it after a while it just became a habit, right? For certain individuals, maybe they see their older homies and picked up on their stilo, and just and they ran with it, right? And it made it kind of something that a lot of individuals started doing, right? But mostly it was done by individuals that were incarcerated, in the beginning. um, you know Same with the long socks, same reason for that, but then individuals, like I said, they took it and ran with it. These individuals, uh, created those customs because of the limitations, due to the fact that they were locked up, right? You gotta make the best with what you got, right? Meaning when it's hot and when it's cold, right? So individuals gotta improvise, right? So that's how you get some of the stilos that you see when people be like, hey, why do they do this and why do they do that? You know, um, but that's the reason for it. Not because it makes you look harder, downer. You know what I mean? It was just because of necessity, right? Because of the environment and the predicaments that you end up in. That um, like I said, the criminal mind never stops working, right? So individuals always are looking for better ways to improve their chances of getting away or making things a lot easier when shit cracks. um, but that's normally the reason why it's done. But like I said, not every individual does that, right? It's not something that's like, if you don't do it, you're not a cholo, right? I think Hollywood grabbed that stereotype, right, and just it made it the what's considered the norm when in all true reality it really isn't, though, right? But yeah, individuals do that, but for those reasons, right? They were most likely incarcerated, right? um, and then others just picked up and ran with it. But yeah, so that's the reason for the top button. What are your thoughts? Did you know the information? Leave it in the comments. Chat. We out.